I have asked Gemini and said, this is my idea. This is what I'm thinking about. Can you please prompt a reminder about it whenever relevant in something I'm asking you? If I had said to it today, I'm going on this podcast and asked a question, it will give me a prompt, for example, that's like, P.S. For your marketing textbook, maybe Bobby's a good candidate to come back to. It just constantly keeps giving me reminders. It kind of gives me these random moments of like, don't forget that idea. So I've conditioned it to do that. So if you have an idea that's floating around in the background, even if it's, or if it's a habit and you're like, I'm really trying to go to the gym more, can you sneak this in ways that make sense? It remembers and it will then just throw you a random prompt.
Hi, and welcome to It's Not the End of the World, Everyday Use Cases for AI. My name is Bobby McCloudich, and I'm the head of AI integration here at Quite Frankly Productions in New York. I'm also the creative director and an ex-teacher. Today, I'm speaking to Emma Mondolino, which is going to be a really interesting conversation. We're sort of focusing more on how she's using it in her day-to-day life rather than her professional life. And I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation. So stay tuned. But first, a word from our sponsor. This show is brought to you by Quite Frankly Productions. Quite Frankly Productions is a video production company that does all tiers of video production, from small scale to full scale commercial productions, animations, and everything in between. We have offices all over the world, England, India, and here in the US. So we can service your production needs no matter where in the world you are. We plug into comms teams, marketing teams, and PR teams. So if that sounds like you and you've got a vision that you want to see created, reach out, quote podcast so they know who sent you, and we'll make it happen. Back to the show. First, give us a little intro as to who you are and what your background is.
Sure. My background is primarily in running marketing and creative teams. So I lead and help translate between groups that are doing marketing strategy, making money, creating insights, and selling products. No matter where those groups are, that's usually what I try to connect. And so my history has been across platforms, former Twitter, Pinterest, Nextdoor, most recently jumped over into consultancy land with MediaLink and UTA, and just really building marketing stories, translating, connecting people both inside and outside of the company.
I mean, I know I said in my intro that we weren't going to talk loads about your professional world, but I mean, that's just a world that must be ripe with AI working its little way into everything you're doing, I imagine.
It is. I think I've always believed in work-life integration instead of balance. Someone will teach me one day what balance looks like. I have yet to figure that out. But I think my world in work life has always been integrated in what's going on outside. So as AI comes up, it's building into the workforce that I'm working with, but also jumps into personal, and I try to make them both work together. In my world, I think the AI side has been equal parts threatening in the, oh no, is it taking over? But also kind of came around from that pretty quickly because so much of what I do needs to be human. When you market to people, you still need a human lens. So I think we still have a little bit of a balance. I think the fear side of AI, as far as I'm concerned, has been lesser so over the last year, especially.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it feels like there's a shift. Are you seeing that? And if you are seeing that shift, how would you describe it?
I am. I think it's in the storytelling side, and it happened pretty quickly. Where at first it was, oh my God, AI can completely replace the stories we're telling. You can just give it this info and it will spit back out the perfect story. And I think, like most things that we see with AI, at first glance, it looks perfect, right? You put something in and you're like, you thought so quickly. You came back out so fast with something. But I think when you look at it more closely, you realize a message isn't repeatable. You still have different audiences. I think AI works really well for scale really quickly in storytelling and marketing, but not for really specific groups at first glance of it. I think it needs more input. And I think that's been one where marketing roles and my role still feels really relevant.
So help me understand that then. So there was like it sounds like you're saying there was either an understanding or a what's the word I'm looking for here?
It wasn't a misconception, almost like a misfear, if that could be a word. I think that it would take over so fast, right? It's made things faster. I think for marketing, it's such a great support tool. I think it amplifies, it escalates, it moves things
Right.
faster, but I don't think it can tell an immediate marketing story.
Right. But you said that where it's being useful is actually, it turns out it's in scaling things.
Yes.
How's that?
I think it's there. Look, it can summarize so much info and it can take so much in and it can take what the the granular story you're trying to tell and make it work for anyone. And so I think you almost get your baseline really quickly. So if you're telling a narrative for a product or a narrative for a platform or the narrative of what a team does, I think it can take all this info and it can explain it to the general population. But I don't think it yet, without a lot of human engagement, can say, this is the exact story for who you're selling to, or this is the exact story of how we're trying to grow.
Sort of, you're almost like describing personalized. So you told one story, you've come up with the story, and then you are personalizing it for different demographics. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yep. And I think that's where it helps at all times. It's a great brainstorm partner, but I don't think it nails that. I think it doesn't have that personalization that makes stories and advertising and brands feel like that aha, you really got me moment. I think it does sometimes. I'll give it credit, but I just, for me and all the other marketers, I think you still need us.
Yeah, we're all saying we're still needed. We're all trying to justify our existence. But no, but it is worth pointing out that it sounds like you're saying the killer application. You're saying scale. I'm hearing scale, like the ability to scale. Maybe there's other killer applications, but is it the fact that you could manipulate all of this or retell your story for the right audience so quickly and with vast some amount? Was that the aha moment for your team or your industry, or was there something else that felt kind of like, oh my god, we just couldn't do this without AI?
Oh my God, there's so many aha moments, right? But I think
Okay.
on the scalable one, it was for me at least that I think for any good story, you need to be able to, you need people to quickly understand what you're talking about. So, what I mean by that is even framing what universe we're living in. Let's take technology and platforms as an example. There's an app for everything. So you start with, we're talking about an app, then is it measurement? Is it creative? Is it what land am I in? And I think AI can really help tell that kind of baseline broad story so you can immediately ground people in what you're talking about. So now you have a scalable intro, if you will. And then I think from there, taking the human effect and being able to say, okay, what really makes us special? You have differentiators that AI can help with, but you get to really personalize that and make sure that you're moving it forward. And I don't think AI has nailed that part of it, but the initial scalable story, it kind of takes the stress work out of feeling like you need to ground that, which is really tough. So I'm grateful for that side.
Yeah, totally. I mean, sometimes it's like when someone says AI isn't right for that yet, part of me thinks that, well, maybe that wasn't the application that we were meant to use it for in the first place. That was the misnomer. Maybe that
Yes,
was what I was looking for before.
that works.
Are there any specific examples to describe what you're sort of describing here, to illustrate what you're describing?
Sure. I think there's a couple of ways. One is there's each platform I've ever worked for, I would tell you, is very unique in its own way. And I've loved working for all of them. I do think that there are similarities. If you look at Twitter, Pinterest, and Nextdoor, they are all platforms. They are all social in some form. They have similar formats and categories. And my roles with all of them were very much working on the revenue marketing side. And so you need a pitch. You need to be able to sell. And part of that is to the consumer base who may not know the platform yet. And part of it is to those consumers that also happen to buy advertising on your platform. I have seen lots of different formats of narratives. I love a good modular narrative, like meaning you take kind of baseline slides, but then there's things you can pull in, a good script, things like that. I think that AI gives me the opportunity to say, here's what's worked before, dump that into choose your AI platform of choice, and then say, what can I take from this to use for a future narrative? What format worked? What resonated? How can I turn this into a timeline and project plan given what I have? How can you make this narrative for this new thing seem more like these past ones that worked? So I think in that way, it's taking what's worked before and scaling it, which I think AI is great at. So I think it helps bring stories forward that way. The other place I would say is project management constantly. I think when you're in a marketing team, no matter what it is, I think both the past worlds as well as especially in the consulting world, so much is projects and team management, and you are at the center of that. You are collecting information from product teams, from insights teams, from comms teams, pulling that all together and being able to have almost your own assistant, but that knows how you operate to say, what are the best timelines here? How should this come together? Which people are involved? And most importantly, where will this fall apart?
Right.
And so I think places like that is where I've used it the most, is really making the most of previous formats, templates, project management. Um, Certainly testing out stories, but I think where I've found the most effective and kind of fast use cases for it has been that side.
That's super interesting. So actually, there's two very distinct, different use cases there. One that's like very, it's almost creative. It's creative in the sense that it's taking creative and then working it into a suite of content that you're going to put out for the right demographic. But then the other part is actually project management, which is very much logistical, and you're finding it very helpful in that department.
Yes, and probably to I'm sure there's a slew of folks that are like, who would need that? If you're more of a creative brain like I am, any support on project management is great. I know what I want something to look like, and my brain goes all over and thinking about creative ideas. Having something that can put that into a proper project management template that works for XYZ teams without me having to think about it is a huge time saver on my end.
Ask which tool are you using to do that?
So I love Claude
Okay.
personally. I
How long have you been using Claude?
I think I switched over to Claude. I play around with Claude more often, probably the last 6, 7 months.
Okay.
I feel
Still
like
a little bit ahead of the game, I'd say. You were kind
maybe,
of, yeah.
maybe. I think it was mostly, a lot of friends I worked with jumped over to Anthropic, and so I was curious about what they were doing, and that was what got me
Is in
over to
friends
it.
of yours working at Anthropic?
Yes, colleagues and friends. I think that when you look at where the industry has gone, look at my career, jumping from those different platforms, you're sort of looking at what's next and how it's evolving. I think that the Anthropics, OpenAIs of the world are very much platforms in a lot of ways, right? And so seeing where they were going, I was intrigued, and
Right.
Anthropic kept coming up. And so I looked up what they were doing, led me to Claude. A couple of friends that had landed there pretty early were doing some really cool things, especially on the design front.
Yeah.
It's a very, all of them look somewhat similar. But Claude's interface, I just find very friendly, if it can be.
It's a very interesting brand, isn't it,
Yeah,
Anthropic? Their brand design is excellent,
it
and
is.
they have done a pretty amazing, I mean, it seems to keep I speak to other people about it, and it's like, "How did this one end up as the one that is currently winning?"
Yep,
Right?
totally. And
Like,
it's got kind of a little bit of the cool kid factor almost. Like it just feels, I don't know, this may be a bad way of comparing it, but it has a little bit of the same emergence for me that Google did. It just is, it's clean, it feels hip. It's done a really nice job there. So as I completely tout for Claude, that being said, I think I do spend the majority of my time, if I'm honest with myself, with the Google suite, whether it's Gemini. I use NotebookLM a fair amount as well.
okay,
So I
alright.
think those guys, it's the reality is they have the most access to me and my tone of voice and who I am and finding what I'm currently working on. So I think while I have a love for it, the reality is I'm probably spending the majority of my time in Gemini.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so question then, so coming back to the specifics on how you do the project management stuff, um, usually the quick tips come at the end of the show, but, I'm curious about actually just if you've got any practical, if I was like, "Hey, Emma, I need to do some, I've got this big project, I need to use it for my project management," how would you advise me to go about doing that?
Well, especially if you're a creative like me, and so you've got 100 different ideas going and trying to get them in one place. So this is a tip both for, I think, professional and personal. I like to say to it, organize this for me. So here's a bunch of different inputs. Here's a bunch of different emails. This is ultimately what I'm trying to do. Get this into a project plan for me. And then I say, thank you for making it for me. What does this look like for name your team? More of a product team. What does this look like for more of an insights team? What does this look like for Bobby specifically? And give it inputs that way.
Can I pause you a second?
Yes.
When you're saying you give it a bunch of emails, you give it, how are you? I know it sounds like, I just like to take it right back to basics.
Yeah.
Like, are you copying and pasting the email in? Have you saved it as a document? Are you putting it into a folder? Like, what's your workflow as far as that goes?
This is where Gemini is helpful. A lot of times I'll just kind of copy and paste in no particular order with zero organization into a Google Doc and say, here,
Yeah.
which is very helpful when it's Gemini. excuse me, and you can say, just summarize. So I think that's where it's really helpful with that platform because it can just take it. I think that the summary of it already gives you a quick take on what you might be missing. So if the summary that it's giving me from what I've copied and pasted in is more about the creative that we're working on, more specifics of formats, but doesn't mention dates or says like, "This seems like a start of a working timeline," then I know it's missing things.
Right.
So you can I like that version of it, or I am very, I don't know, cruel to my poor AI agent
Are
where
you?
I just dump everything and I'm like, "You figure it out."
Okay,
So
good.
very copy and paste.
You're not rude to the AI
There
assistant.
I mean, I'm like, "Go."
You don't call it an idiot.
No.
You missed this
I
thing, you
say I
idiot.
am one of those people that says thank you.
You know, they do say that you're like, apparently you get better results if you're rude to it.
It makes sense, right? If someone barks something at you,
Yeah.
you're more inclined. I always feel weird. I'll notice too in my prompts. I'm like, "Good morning." To who? Wait, what?
Oh, I like
But
to I say thanks. I say good job. It's, like,
that's nice.
depending, sometimes it does a
Rewarding
really
it.
good job, and I'm like, "Wow, this you really nailed this."
It's really helpful.
Yeah. But sometimes it doesn't, and I won't say you're an idiot,
And
but
there's no praise, right? But there's the silence. I wonder if the silence hurts as
I
much
don't
as it
know.
hurts with
I
us.
don't know, but but, like, I just feel like I wanna just I'm so, like, when it does a good job, I'm so pleased,
Yes.
and I can't believe that it nailed it so well.
Well, I want it to know because I want it to do that again, which also in
Right.
kind of bridging the professional and personal, my pro tip there is if something gets spit back out that works well for you in a work setting, it will very well work well for you in a personal setting. So I am I am 38 weeks pregnant as I hang out with you here. And all of us,
Congratulations.
thank you. My life feels like it's on a lot more timelines personally than it was in the past. As silly as it is, having a templated structure that says this is a great project plan at work, I have oftentimes said to it, "Thanks, take this format and can you translate it into our timeline for the nursery that we're building out?" Or if I were to take this and have it be something that I needed to send to my mom and my husband, who, similar to product and comms teams, speak wildly different languages, reuse this. And so I do try to see where I can use things. And as a human, not just a worker or a pregnant woman, you're now seeing something that you're familiar with, and I find that the crossover of using similar systems, helps that work-life integration.
We're gonna segue, I think, into your personal life,
Sure.
if you don't mind. But, I'm still gonna stick on the project management
Yeah.
for a minute because, it sounds really, really useful. Have you dipped into the whole spreadsheet kind of mechanisms that
I have somewhat. So there is I being the creative side, the spreadsheet side of things is always what I try to run away from, but you need them, and I think that that's also where me prompting and saying, "Make this useful to the insights teams, to the ops teams, to the finance teams." Um, Generally, I always ask it to spit it out in a spreadsheet. What I think that has done for me and made me more efficient as both a coworker and frankly a marketer is I see what it cuts and what it actually puts into a spreadsheet. So for me, if I'm creating a project plan and a timeline, I'm so excited about the tone of voice we're using. I'm so excited about how we're bringing this message forward. And I am excited about what the budget is. And I am excited about what we need to tell the product team we need to advance on. But I'm probably too sing-songy for them and what it is. And so having it just cut it and kind of brutally say to me, these 4 cells and these, 10 rows is what the budgeting team needs
that's good.
is helpful.
I mean, I wonder if because you started with Claude 6 months ago,
Yep.
you may or may not have started seeing all of the changes that came about with Opus 4.6.
I haven't, but I did so I snuck up on your podcast and I heard a little bit about it in some of the past episodes.
Oh, okay.
So that was my training there.
So you saw that.
But
Yeah.
I haven't played with it properly and I think I should. Again, Gemini has been my hack because I'm mostly Google Suite, but seeing what it can do there makes a lot of sense,
It's just a level up, and it
which
sounds
is
like what
great.
you're already doing. It sounds like you would just take what you've already got built,
Yeah,
and then you just say, "Can you put this into a spreadsheet for me?" And I
and
have
it'll take
found
it.
that, yeah, the Claude's brilliant. I don't know if you saw the last episode, but I was testing it with ChatGPT
Yep.
5.4 that has just come out, and it was a double edged sword. One, it took about 15 times as long, quite literally. It took like a minute for Claude to do it and took 15 minutes for ChatGPT to do it. But it also looked great, you
Yes,
know?
and I think the looking great factor gives you satisfaction on it, and it is look, we're impatient. We get everything so fast, and so I do think if it you were resilient and staying with it to see that it can get there, and they are similar systems, but I think getting there was much more satisfying.
Yeah. Well, isn't there like some metric that Google figured out that was like for every second that someone's waiting for the search results to come up, they're more likely to click away?
And do something else, I'm sure. I mean, our attention spans are
Yeah.
beyond at
So
this point.
so they tried to balance which, like, what's the efficacy of our search engine versus the speed. And like there's a sweet
Fascinating.
point where you can be really good
Yep.
but also fast enough,
Yes.
and it kind of, that's something I'm noticing. So obviously this 15 minutes to wait for a really beautiful spreadsheet is too long for me. Like, I need it in like a minute, please.
Yep.
And so Claude is doing a better job there. I do notice though that I don't know if you noticed it, the desktop app with Claude is a little unresponsive sometimes.
Yes.
You like cycle through the tabs and it can be a bit slow, whereas with ChatGPT's desktop app, it's much quicker.
Goes. I have seen that, again, just because we're so impatient, but you do notice it. I do also think Gemini has its settings of fast or thinking or kind of you choose your level of brilliance here. I have found anytime that I've messed around with having them actually think, or the thinking mode, I'm actually more frustrated with it because then it's thought and I'm like, I don't think that this was this much better if I just told you
Right.
fast. And
Yeah.
I do think for my use cases as I use it, and I'm sure that there is the brilliant scale is very helpful somewhere. For what I'm asking it, I actually find that the more I'm having it think, the more it's actually overcomplicated it. I
Right.
just want it to get something kind of going.
You want to react to something.
Yes, and move it, and I think that's where I still feel if I want the thinking process, I'm probably finding people in a room for that phase, but I want the fast part. I do have patience for it. I really enjoy Notebook's podcast features that they can essentially create
Love
for
that.
you,
Yeah.
and that one I'm really patient. I'm like, "Oh, it's thinking." You have to let it do its thing.
Take as long as you need to
Do
think.
whatever you want, it's fine. I gave you a bunch of things I wanted you to do. Um, and I do find that to be really useful. And I think that it's phenomenal what it comes back with, either for summarizing something, or I love using that as a prediction where I'll say, if I were, I think in work life, if I were to set a panel with these sorts of people or these specific names, give me a 5-minute version of what this might look like and what they might say.
Costs.
Or a panel at a major event
No, but I
or
mean,
what it go
that's what you use the NotebookLM
yes,
podcast thing for.
it
I mean,
almost gives it to
give
you
us
real
give us the summaries on what that tool is and how it works and what you use it for.
Sure, I'm sure that there is a better summary. Again, I am like such a quick ad hoc. I come into something and I'm like, what does this do? So what it lets you do is you come into Notebook. It essentially will let you, the same way you input any info into one of the other systems, you do the same, but you have the option to create different formats. So it can spit that back out to you in a podcast form. It has a typical podcast voice. I still don't totally know how it does that. You can tell it you want it to be shorter or longer, more in depth, whatever the case is. So you essentially create audio. It's also pretty good at creating infographics. It has something called a mind map, which could use some work, but almost as a flow chart of thinking. So it's just, I think in summary, it's different formats than text that it's feeding you back information in. It's a really strong learning tool. I think if I was still in college, I haven't messed with the note cards or flashcards version, but it's almost a learning and study guide of information more so than a present a project plan function. It's more of an understanding tool.
Aimed at education, isn't it?
Yep.
What, but zoom in on the actual podcast itself.
Yeah.
The audio, I think it's called Audio Overview.
Yes.
So what does it do?
You say to it, there's you can I'm looking down at my Starbucks. You can say to it, I'm interested in the history of the Starbucks company, but I want it summarized in 10 minutes. I'd like a podcast, and I'm primarily looking at how the role of the barista has developed. And it will give you a completely personalized podcast based on that topic. Similarly, you can give it a slide deck and say, this is a pitch from a company that's trying to get me to invest in them. I need the summary. And without ever looking at the pitch deck, it will give you the audio version of what's going on.
Yeah, and it's two hosts, isn't it? It has a
Yes.
female voice and a male voice, and one of them's going, "Oh my god,
They
have
try
you
to make
have
it
you
very real.
have you heard about Starbucks?" And the other one says, "Yeah, Starbucks has been going for 30 years," or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I use that feature as well. I love it for me, it's really great for, like, breaking down briefs. So briefs often coming from the client, they can be really wordy, and I've learned I'm not very good visual learner, but I'm a very good audio learner,
Yep.
and I can retain information really well when I hear it. And so sure enough, my workflow now is get the brief, skim read it, make an audio overview, go for a walk, listen to it, and then when I come back, read the brief again.
And
And
see
and
if
sure
it
enough,
makes
I
sense.
won't have seen things the first time round. I'll
Totally.
hear it on the podcast and be like, "What? They're doing
Where did
a
that come from?
is that actually that they must have it must have made that up." And then I'll see it and I'll be like, "Oh, no, that's
It's in
actually."
there.
Yeah.
I do find that really helpful. And I also think on the audio front of it, it is look, briefs are always dense, pitch decks are always a lot. I think even as someone is live pitching you, sometimes you're thinking about everything else at some moments. It's a character thing, whatever the case is. And so I think being able to just jump into it on the go, and it's almost again, you're not being fed something that you're not interested in. You asked it to do this. So you almost feel like I at least feel like you kind of are listening more because I'm like, you made this just for me. And the idea of being able to do it on the go, I think is helpful. I always think that reading something that's really word heavy, it's just tough when you're sitting there and going through something, especially when you're trying to process or learn. Look, stick with the history of Starbucks. It's vast. There is a lot that happened there. There are books written about it. You're not going to be able to retain what you are really looking for, that initial interest that was sparked. And I think that that kind of really quick for you audio is helpful.
Yeah, totally. Full disclosure, I actually, when we first met, we were, having a coffee for the audience. We were having a coffee, talking about potential collaborations,
Yeah,
working together. And, I like, did deep research on Emma Mondolino. So, got my like research in place. And then I was walking, half an hour to meet you. So I was like, I'll just do audio overview.
I
So
love
I
that.
listened to an audio overview of Emma Mondolino.
That's great. This should be a dating feature. They should do this not to make it weird, but they should do this that it's like if you want to show up great on your first date, you should listen to this and it'll tell you what you need to know. Maybe some people will flee.
Do you know what's also you're making me think of as well, actually, just as you're describing the kind of like the volumes of pitch decks and words that are all associated with that. A friend of mine works at Spotify and they were talking about how, it feels like to come back to how we seem to be moving into a new era of adoption. It feels like, it's really, people are really getting now what AI can do or can't do.
Yep.
Anyway, at Spotify, they're going through the period now where I think all of the teams internally, if you're working on brand or you're working in marketing, pitch to the seniors for which campaign they should, here's my idea for a campaign. Can we get the budget to do it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Anyway, they got an all staff kind of email memo like on this round, just within the last month or so, saying, "Can everybody new rules for how we want these things pitched to us? No longer can anything be longer than a page."
Yep.
Because they've been receiving just everyone's pitch decks were just unbelievably detailed. So much writing in them, and as a result, they've said, "Look, we all know you're doing it with AI. That's great, but we've got to change. Something's got to change. Like, communicate your message shorter, more succinctly, and get to the point."
Totally. And it does, I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is that you can really, really be so succinct. I mean, it can pull something down. You can give it 50 pages of your life story and say, turn this into a sentence. And in fast mode, it will do it. And we'll just quell everything down. I think where it's going for me that I think is interesting is, again, it takes patience. And I think you need to be excited about it. But if you take that at Spotify and you take all those examples and you say, what is what's the commonality of all of these pitches? What's the core message that could be there? Take that and make it the really succinct part. Selfishly, I'm like, just go hog wild on what some of the smaller pieces are and the differentiators. And I wonder if that's where some of the magic is for one of those stories. And I think that's what gets missed. I find myself on emails I can be long winded. All of my teams have told me I get really excited on an idea, and the storyteller in me wants you to have all of the background. And so I think I'm constantly saying, make this concise and trusting it to pull things away. I do think it takes away from the personality behind something and the story behind something and how you want something to be perceived. And so I that's where I hope we use it in the right ways, but it would be a shame for marketers to lose all of
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think it's going to evolve, isn't it? What I'm noticing, I was chatting with someone about this over the weekend. It's like, the old metric they used to say, it's like as soon as you get the time back, you'll just put that time somewhere else. And what I'm noticing in my own work is that my pitch decks now are no longer a deck of slides, traditional, because now I can make a website,
Yep.
so
You can make it interactive. Why wouldn't
yeah,
you?
so I'm making an interactive website and, showing a friend all of this stuff. I'm like, look at this, what I did for this client. We had an interactive like website to begin with just to win the work. Then I made an app so I could,
Yeah.
project manage them through it and they could see the whole timeline. And then I made present this first storyboard, another interactive website and, la la la. And he was like, wow, how long did it take to do that? I was like, well, about the same amount of time it would have taken me to do the
To do the pitch deck.
to do the pitch deck. It's just better. It's
Yep.
just obviously way better. But so it's not like I'm spending any less time. It's not actually saving me any time. It's just improving
Yes.
the sort of experience. I mean, we make films here, so none of that is actually the film.
Yep.
You know, I think,
But the lead up is exciting.
yeah, I think, the kind of like the client experience is really important and,
Yeah.
kind of all of that.
And pulling it all together. And I think it's also we're closing the gap in the understanding of who's also receiving that, right? Because I think that there are folks that you'll send an amazing app and a website that's interactive and they're like, "Do I have a pitch? Did you send it though? What is it?" Right? And I think that that's also something we're I think we're in very similar industries. I think for the industries we're in, we're so familiar with it. I think of the very different industries, whether it's medical or otherwise. If you imagine if someone's going in after a residency and applying for their first doctor job and they show up with something other than a CV, but are like, check out my amazing website that you can go through. The hiring staff there is going to be like, excuse me, what is this? So I think the other worlds are starting to catch up as well and understanding what this can be. But I think there's still, where it's so obvious in our world, there's this massive gap in what it can do elsewhere.
Well, and you're so right. Not to get sort of mesmerized by the technology and, putting all the bells and whistles on things when actually what's the core message and what are we trying to
Bring them.
yeah, exactly.
Isn't it funny? We just said that you can make something so succinct, but also you can create this endless tale of different information and formats.
Well, that's the skill, isn't it? And I'm very interested in just how what becomes possible.
Yep.
My brother runs his own business. He runs a ski chalet company.
That's fun.
Yeah, really fun, like, in the Alps. And, he was saying, I was talking to him about vibe coding. He hadn't really tried it yet. And he was saying about how they used to have this interactive game on their website a long time ago that they didn't code themselves. They did like a little promotion and competition to get people to come to their website. And I was like, you could probably just build your own version of that
Same
now.
here.
Just like build a game to go on your website and, you can have it branded, you can have all your own things. In fact, I'll do it for you.
Yep.
Before we even get off this call, I'll just
Here
put
it
the
is.
prompt in and it will be ready for you. And sure enough,
Yeah.
and it makes people think about, they say, people's jobs are going to go, but new jobs will open is the big argument, right? Like, is everyone going to be out of work, or are there going to be new industries and new ideas? And I think anyone who says they have the answer is just completely speculating.
Yep.
But I do notice that, like, that's something new. You know,
Yes.
you, Emma, might say, "Hey, we want to have this suite of promotional products,"
Yep.
and I can say, "Yeah, I can make you a video game."
Yep.
Would that have even be possible before? Like, I mean, how much would someone have had to pay for that?
And not even known where to start, right? And I think that's where it opens it up. And yes, there will be jobs replaced. There will be plenty of them. I think that there is a longer timeline for that than we originally thought because there's so many people that need to get on board and understand. But we would have said the same thing about search, right? And now it's the most obvious thing and everyone knows how to do it. I just think that there is, but then you still have human capacity that you need for it. And I think that's something that will just help us.
Right. Well, what's the point of these AI systems if they're not being prompted by somebody?
Right. I totally. And then how you take that and continue it. I think this is a little bit philosophical, but I think we kind of take these dips in my mind where we become very, very, very online focused and everything is online. And then we have these aha moments where we're like, there's people are really lonely. They're in front of screens. We should do all of these things in person. We need to pull people back into the real world. I think in recent years, a bit darker, but I think things like COVID forced us to realize how much human connection is important. But yet we were also totally online. Then you come back out of your shells. I think AI will do something similar where we do so much that just feels like I can just riff with the spot. I don't need to have a conversation with someone. I can come up with an entire plan here and just send it. I can listen to a podcast on the go. I don't need to talk to people. And then I think we will have the shift of, well, wait, the person side of it is really important. I really enjoy that side. There's an art to it. How does this come back? And then we'll kind of revert. But I think it's like all systems that we've come across that you kind of have that back and forth. I do think what AI is doing will create even cooler in-person experiences and connections because it takes away some of the time that you need to create things and kind of what you need as a setup. And so I think that will lead to better in-person connections, whether that's pitches or time at the ski chalet or anything like that. I think it will just open those doors.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think it's gonna.
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that's very utopian, but
no, well,
I hope
look,
so.
hey, if you can't imagine the utopian vision, then what are we aiming for?
And we're just scared. So I think it's better that way.
Yeah, like, keep the fear in mind, but try and drive towards a target that's worth striving for. I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is going to create like a even more democratization of skills, and then empowering more people to do their own kind of creative projects. What does that mean? I think a business is a creative project ultimately.
Yeah.
If you are a business owner, that's your vision that you're having seeing come to life. And I guess it strikes me that I guess more and more people will be able to execute their creative vision, which then I guess makes me think that it would then society becomes even more fragmented, for better or worse, as we all become, in our own little silos, but servicing well, I guess either our local communities or the community that I'm trying to service with my product. I see that as a being a sort of a potential side effect of the tools are so powerful that now I can use this tool to market my product or my idea. Let's take my podcast, for example,
Sure.
like that's my product. Okay, I'm making this podcast on my own. Okay, I'm using an AI tool to edit it. I'm now getting AI to write copy. I'm hoping, God willing, I'll be able to get an AI to do all the social media because that's the
Yep.
piece that I just like, it drains me. I find it difficult to do. Um,
That's the time saver though, because you would procrastinate on that side because you don't want to do it and it will just take that over for you,
that's it.
which gives you more time to talk to interesting people. See, right back to real
Well,
life.
that's truly it. I mean, this is the bit I love. This is the bit that I actually like doing this for. Then there's all these other bits that you don't really like.
Well, turning around production would be impossible to have more people without some of the tools that we've come up with, right? So, yeah, totally. I think that side of it helps a tremendous amount and just helps move things forward, which I think is good. Be wary on the social side. Some of those social images are still scary for everything AI does. I feel like the videos that we've seen and the images that we've seen are either so incredibly realistic that it's terrifying,
Uh,
or they're so immensely bad that they are accidentally offensive.
I couldn't agree more. What my hope is that I've been daydreaming about OpenClaw. Have you heard of OpenClaw?
No.
OpenClaw is like the autonomous agent that people put it on like a Mac Mini or a laptop
Okay.
in its own contained environment
Okay.
because they're so afraid that it could like
Take over.
take over or destroy their like all their files because it has complete free reign on whatever device you put it on,
Got it.
right? And it can just behave it can do whatever it thinks is right to do in order to achieve the goal that you've set it.
Basically become, if you will, like becomes its own thing.
Yeah, yeah, sort of. So you give it a personality. So there's a file, you describe its personality, and then it can update its personality as it goes forward. As it's like, oh, Emma doesn't like when I do this, so I should do that.
Yep.
Emma wants me to be more assertive, so it puts it in its personality file. But it has a file called a soul. I'm not really sure what that one does. And
Okay.
then it has another, but it sounds eerie.
Yep.
And then it has another file called a heartbeat. And in the heartbeat, that is a how often it wakes up to
Fascinating.
do things, right?
Yep.
So Emma might have said, well, this is what Bobby, what Bobby wants to do with it
Yep.
is say, hey, OpenClaw, every 30 minutes, can you wake up and check all of my social media channels? And if there's any like trolling, can you report back to me and tell me about it? And this is the other cool thing: people connect it to their WhatsApp or Telegram or like messaging apps, so they communicate. It texts them
And just
when it's
tells you.
found something, right?
That's
And then you go, oh, okay, and then what I want to do is rather than using it to create social media, my aim would be to every time I put this clip into a folder, I want you to watch the clip, write the copy, tell me what you think the copy should be, and then when I approve it, post it online for me.
totally. And then see what the sentiment is, and it can give you future iterations of what makes sense,
Yeah.
etcetera, which is impressive. It's like taking you set up Google Alerts or whatever the case is, except now it's got that elevated, also tell me sentiment and build based on this type of scenario, which is, again, in theory, when we talk about anything and say, like it has something that can be its soul, it sounds terrifying. At the same time, what a great efficient use case and tool.
Well, yeah, right, in theory. And I think bringing it back to the kind of like, I don't see like no one's going to replace Emma Mondolino
Yep.
with that thing, right?
Yep.
But me, like a content creator doing this little thing on his own, like my little product, that's useful for me to get the ground, like to get the ball rolling.
Yep.
And then once this obviously becomes like the top 10 podcast on Spotify,
Naturally.
then I get to hire Emma Mondolino to actually give me her expertise rather than sort of, working with a stupid AI.
But it'll get you there where I think it does take, right, that goes back to the scalability function. It looks at, okay, the internet appreciates this type of language and this gets engagement and it likes this and it moves that forward. And then as you're building it, someone like a me can come in and say, okay, what's the summary of what this podcast does? And what's the summary of what's been working? And even kind of prompted a little bit to what's missing, what could be different, what's something that a similar podcast has that this doesn't have, and then come up with that strategy with you. But it saves so much time and makes it a way more efficient play. But it doesn't have that, I think that last piece, it would just keep doing it for you. And then at some point that gives up.
But that's so true, isn't it? I mean, all these tools are all so much more powerful in the hands of people that already know the thing that they're doing in the
Yes.
first place.
But then it catches us up anyway. So it's super useful in that
That's
way.
that's the curious thing, isn't it? It's the weird thing. It's like we all feel like we're app developers now. We'll move on to vibe coding in a sec because I saw a funny meme where I'm like vibe coding and like building things, and I think in the startup world, in the tech world, you have like technical founders, those that know how to code, and then non-technical founders, those that don't know how to code.
I've worked with both. Fascinating experiences on both sides.
So I saw this meme which was Claude. What happens when your non-technical founder gets their hands on Claude Code? And it was the non-technical founder was represented as a monkey, and then Claude Code was an AK-47. So
That's
he's with a machine gun, and
yes.
then all of the engineers are standing there.
Yep, that's accurate though. That feels right.
So yeah, so it's like a monkey with a machine gun. Speaking of monkeys with machine guns, you were saying that you were experimenting with with.
Yes. So I had no business doing that, but I now feel like I've learned a new brief skill. So, as prompted by researching the podcast and hearing about it, I was like, well, so they have tools for people just like me. I should mess around with this. So, I was saying that I take a lot of my work life and things that work and shift it to personal life. One of the things, it sounds sad. It is not as sad in my case. I think it's a difficult thing a lot of folks deal with. I'm recently taking over as guardian for my father who has dementia, who is in his mid 80s and is kind of in this next phase of his life, and I am trying to figure out how to balance taking care of him and learning about guardianship. I do not wish it on anyone. It is a brutal process. I think we have phenomenal legal systems, but there are also the hurdles you have to go through speaking in legal jargon to get access to information for someone that has dementia where they can't tell you where their assets are or where they were yesterday is really difficult. And so it's been a really eye-opening process for me just walking into a number of different banks and saying, "Hey, I have a social security number. Does this person have a bank account here? Oh, you don't want to tell me that because you need these 19 documents. Got it. I will send them to these 5 teams, and some need to be mailed and some need to be faxed, etc." It's just a really dense world. And I think especially when you're dealing with the emotional side of it, of this person that you care about, the whole thing is really tough. And there isn't a lot that can help you because these are some of the more antiquated systems and you don't have inputs to give AI, right? It can't kind of sort something out for you. So I'm dealing with that on the side. Again, there's have a day job and dealing with growing a small human is a really fun project. And so I've built out spreadsheets and project plans because that's how my brain operates for who do I need to reach out to? Do I need to reach out to the IRS? I need to reach out to these bank branches. I need to reach out to doctors. And so, knowing that I can potentially build an app, just last night, I was like, well, surely there's something where I could say, if I feed into a website of sorts or into an app and say, this is a medical document. This is a financial document. This is whatever. And this is what I'm using it for. Can it take the information and just fill in for me what it is and what next steps are? So it's almost like a guardianship organization app. And it started messing around with it for me. So I'm very, very new to it, but it is way better than my crazed spreadsheet. And I was uploading individual documents. The legal jargon is awful. It is like it's the Queen's English, and you have no idea what you're reading. And I'm like, is this? Am I being sued? Am I being praised? What's happening? And so it cuts through that, and I was thinking about it last night. A friend and I had joked about this. She's also going through something similar that we should start a business around it. And I was like, there could actually be an app that's like, if you're getting started on guardianship, you have no idea where to start. You don't know what the documents are that you need. What's the plan? It needs an app.
Like TurboTax or something.
Yes, and so I take you on a long tangent, but I don't know how familiar people are with the guardianship world. But I think having something that organizes it for you and says these are documents you need. This is where you need a lawyer. This is where you need a court system for your specific case, and kind of a to do of it. There's plenty of these types of apps that now exist for when you're pregnant, for example. Companies sponsor them that you say, I have no idea how I apply for maternity leave with the state. And it feeds out these steps and it says, tell me these questions about you, and then I'll tell you where to go. It doesn't exist for guardianship that I can find. So that was what I messed with. So I've started playing around with it, and it's also something that's immediately useful. I would love to go in there with something way more fun and be like, builds me an app that tells me why my plants keep dying. But I think this is a real use case
Well, that's
for
what you
me.
need. I mean, you need to be inspired by the thing that you're building, right? So that
Yeah,
you can actually use it.
and really get it to function even better. So that's my new home project, as inspired by this podcast.
Oh my God, well, I'm flattered. All right, let me just digest some of that then.
Sure.
So it sounds like first you're already using AI to help organize some of these things. You're also using it to translate the legalese so that you could actually understand what you needed to do and how you needed to do it.
Yes.
But now you've taken it one step further and you're building an app that can make it like a more user-friendly experience. Is that kind
Yeah.
of what I'm hearing?
I think user-friendly experience and can navigate what you have that will help you get to the next step and what you need. So and I think one of the simplest forms, if you need to find out what the history of a bank account is, they have a gazillion. It's a little bit like working with the IRS. There's like a 207F form versus a 308Y form for the banks, and it is madness to figure it out. So instead, it immediately says to you, you have this form, you don't have this form. This is where you find it.
Can I make some suggestions?
Yes,
So my
please,
so
as I'm on my learning journey.
well, my so Replits amazing, right? Because it enables you to connect to databases and does all this sort of behind the scenes stuff,
Yep.
which you may or may not need for what you're doing. But definitely, I don't know if you're maybe you're already doing this, but always have a Claude chat on the
I'm
side.
20 minutes in, so this is no, I
Yeah.
have to take it.
So Replit good and everything, but I feel like it's a bit, I don't know, it's sort of like it's a bit of a jack of all trades. It sort of does everything,
Yep,
right? But Claude is just, as you know, just super intelligent.
yep,
And so always have like a Claude chat available and run everything by it first. Because did you notice with Replit, you prompt it and then it's 15 minutes before you get your app back, right? So you can say to Claude, hey, this is my idea. This is
yep.
what I'm planning to do. Is this a good kind of use case? Anything I should watch out for? And it'll come back with like, yes or no. And then obviously you can screenshot anything and everything and put it back into Claude and say, give me feedback on this thing and whatnot. So 100% that. But then also, at some point, you're probably going to want to ditch Replit and actually just get into using Claude Code.
Okay.
You know,
It's gonna be an exciting upgrade for me. We'll see.
I mean, so I would be sort of like, if you have the time, sort of
Yep.
experimenting with different,
Yeah.
which one gives me the best result.
Yep.
Like so, a bit like when you probably do it anyway with Claude and with and Gemini and ChatGPT, like
Totally.
same prompt,
Yep.
different use case. Let's just see which one of these three.
Oh, I love taking an answer and saying to it, "Oh, I'll say like, "Oh, I rewrote this as this, but it's actually what Claude gave me after,"
Yeah,
and then ask it to like nitpick it.
yeah.
I find that very entertaining.
So you can do it the same with coding, basically, and and I tend to find that Claude ends up coming up with the best results.
Yep.
So, and it all seems a bit intimidating, right? Because you have to use the terminal.
Yes, which that is I need to find my brother somewhere who's in IT. He'll be so proud that I did anything with this, but even to use that, I was using Gemini, but was like, "What do I do here?"
Yeah,
So I feel like I was getting taught and then being rewarded by trying it out, but then being retaught.
like so Claude with you have your Claude down as like your project manager, and he's just like, I just say, just treat me like I'm a complete idiot.
Yep.
I need to know because it says, oh, just in terminal in Claude Code, you need to just say this and this, and I'm like,
You're like, "Come again?"
I don't even know how to open terminal.
Correct. It's like start
Yeah.
before.
Give me the steps to open terminal, then get the thing in that place, and then that, and just do that.
Yep.
And before, but that bit feels all a bit intimidating. But you're just following what Claude says,
Yeah.
and then you can do the work and get Claude to give you the prompt, and then you copy and paste the con into terminal,
Yep.
and then before you know it, you got all the stuff. And the reason I say all of this is because the app you're describing sounds like it's got these like nuances that I think are important to get Claude's opinion on.
Yeah.
For example, like where am I going to get all of this information? Like the legal steps. Like, how can I trust where it's pulling this from?
Yeah.
Would it be useful to have an AI assistant in there? If I am having an AI assistant,
Yeah.
like which AI assistant should I use?
Yeah.
Those are all questions I'd be asking Claude rather than Replit. Because I feel like Replit will have its services that it wants you to use, whereas Claude's a bit more just like, I'll give you a bunch of ideas and you can choose which one's best.
I think even I'm thinking about what I would do next with it. I think even saying to Claude, is it realistic that I could get this information? So much of it, if you're dealing with banks and the IRS and hospitals, I think Claude can also say, the reality is you're going to get this far, but there's no point in building this into this because you're HIPAA
Yeah.
and whatnot. So like, don't bother. Where I think Replit would say, sure, I built it. I If it works is irrelevant, but I think it's that side of it too. So
Yeah.
having that balance of how far can I take this? Again, it's the theme of me using this. I think that's where the scalability of an app that could help everyone, but testing it with here's my specific nuances that Claude you know so well already from all of my translation of legal documentation. How can this work?
Exactly. And the great thing about Claude is as well, it might well say, no, that won't work, Emma, but this might work. This thing that you
Go to
haven't even
this
thought about,
instead.
and you're like, oh, okay, cool. There's a solution I didn't even know existed.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to use them in tandem and together. So this was my first play around with it, but it was a fun way to kind of pull it together and has saved a bunch of time. Again, I think that's where, work life integration land. If you can make those things work together and have an app that's sorting out my personal life for me per se, that frees up a lot more time to still make sure you can do your day to day.
Honestly, it's so fun. Now you're getting into it. Like project management apps are fun as well. So once you start, it's very addictive. I've got like 20 different apps on my computer now, which
It's it's fun. I'm now also very curious where it's going to take me and the how can my work life and how I balance things make sense in the life of a toddler. We're gonna see how that plays out too.
oh, the other tip on Claude Code is you need to turn on. So the nice thing about Replit is you just set it and forget it. The Claude Code will keep asking you to like put like,
Okay.
oh, is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do that?
Or, like, wants to be my friend. Okay.
It thinks that you know anything, and so it's like, hey, I'm going to make this npm tilde key comma dash square bracket thing.
I'm
Is
just
that is
literally
that
gonna write
okay?
back "Go, comma, Claude!" exclamation
Yeah,
point.
and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, just do it. So you can turn on this. It's called dangerously skip permissions,
Okay.
right? Which sounds dangerous,
Sure,
obviously.
because I'm telling it, "Go do your thing," but if I don't know any better anyway, I think it's just as terrifying.
I just let it run. I'm sure at some point that's gonna come back to bite me in the butt, but I keep asking it, and I'm yet to implement any of this. I say, "Claude, I'm running this in dangerously skip permissions mode. How do I make sure that I'm safe if anything
Yes.
goes wrong?" And it does tell me the answer. I can't remember what the answer is now, but just
Still,
be aware of that.
should I decide that it's an app I would actually sell to any sort of real entity, I'll make sure it's on, but for now, while it's me, myself, and my own stuff, I'll tell it to go after it.
It's good for, like, just prototyping
Yep,
because you want it just to, like, run,
just go and figure it
and
out.
there's probably nothing is I don't know, I don't think it's gonna it might delete everything on your computer and
It's fine.
who
It's
cares?
fine. Yeah, and I'll, like, build a new app that brings it all back. It'll be A-okay.
This has been a really great chat. We're hitting the hour mark, but before we finish up, why don't we get your quick tips? This is the fan favorite. The internet is awash with people claiming that the quick tip section is their favorite section of the
I
podcast.
love that with the quick tips. So I do think that one of them really is just wherever you can think of what you're doing that's working for you professionally and getting you organized and helping you probably can help in your personal system. So I think thinking of that. The other fun thing that I've done is I feel like I'm always thinking of new ideas and what I want to come back to. And I have asked in this case specifically Gemini that whenever there is a chance to sneak in a reminder about one of the ideas I want to do to prompt that back to me. So, a real life example of this, I have this vision of creating a marketing textbook coffee table book. I think that marketing textbooks are super antiquated at this point, still have the 4 Ps and all of this. And at this point, no one knows what a marketing coordinator is. That can be 900 different jobs when you're graduating. So, I think there's a really interesting coffee table book that is personalities and types of people that are in different roles and explaining what they do. Reason I use that example is I have asked Gemini and said, "This is my idea. This is what I'm thinking about. Can you please prompt a reminder about it whenever relevant in something I'm asking you?" So I haven't gotten myself to actually get to doing it, but it'll say things like, if I had said to it today, I'm going on this podcast and asked a question, it will give me a prompt, for example, that's like, "P.S. For your marketing textbook, maybe Bobby's a good candidate to come back to." It just constantly keeps giving me reminders.
Brilliant.
So I have it set in a way that I'm not losing ideas and it kind of gives me these random moments of like, don't forget that idea. So I've
Yeah.
conditioned it to do that. So if you have an idea that's floating around in the background, even if it's a habit and you're like, I'm really trying to go to the gym more, can you sneak this in ways that make sense? It remembers and it will then just throw you a random prompt. So I've been using it as a kind of nice reminder tool and it's way better than asking a person because you can, you're
It's such a
talking about
different
it.
way to get a reminder as well. So they're
Totally.
integrated into when it's contextually relevant
Yep.
and kind of like giving you more ideas with this thing. Like, oh, hey, you realize that this thing you're talking about now is related to that other thing that
Yes. To
that you
do.
wanted to.
Yes, I'm helping mentor someone, who's looking for her first job, and she was asking about marketing terms that she should know. And I was like, "Well, I don't know, ER, engagement rate, like, there's a bunch of them. What am I thinking of?" And was getting the checklist for myself to walk through. And then being very kind, I said, "Thank you." And it said, "P.S. This could be a great appendix to your marketing textbook." Like, sure, good plan, good reminder. So it will bring you random things like that. So that's my random pro tip of it. Not maybe an AI hack per se, but a good way to keep it bringing your personal life back.
Well, Emma, I've never heard that one before. So that is brilliant. Really,
That
really great.
maybe not as proficient on AI as other folks, but I think I'm using it in the typical marketing creative lens.
You are selling yourself short. Honestly, this has been a really, really great conversation.
I'm glad.
Okay, but one final tip:
Yes.
a fun or unexpected use case.
A fun or unexpected use case. Um, I you can tell I like it in different stories. So I think it is a good way to, again, I keep coming back to it, to have different tips, but I love using it to ask it how to make real life situations more efficient. I'm ending you on a full personal note, and I don't know if this is where you were going, but I just had a baby shower. I'm a very anti baby shower person. My sister in law is an absolute dream. Shout out to her that created something absolutely magical for me. And I'm just bad at getting to those things. I wanted it to be efficient. I asked it to recreate a traditional system. And so I had said, people bring books to baby showers. We live in Manhattan. It is a pain to carry them across. I don't want people to bring me books, but I want books and I want inscriptions, but I don't want them to bring them to me. Help. And it came up with this plan to have inscription stickers that we had at the restaurant that people wrote in, but sent me the books directly. And then I just brought home a pile of stickers that I pasted into books. I would
The
have
stickers are on a sheet, and they could
exactly.
just fill them in the.
They filled them in. They had a really cute logo on them, and I now have a baby library filled with books that I wanted that were all shipped to my home. I walked away from the restaurant with one book from almost 60 people being there and just put in inscription stickers. So a very random use case, but I think it's just a I love asking it for efficiencies of real life applications too. I think we use it so much in a digital form. It's good at coming up with real life plays as well. So that was my most recent one that was kind of a totally random and unexpected.
That's lovely. I love that, and it always surprises me as well when it is clever.
Yeah.
You know,
And to everyone having showers everywhere, like try like ask it for the way you want it to be more you.
great. Emma, what a lovely personal note to end on.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And to you, my listeners, thank you for joining us on It's Not the End of the World. We'll see you next time, unless it really is the end of the world.